Alright, everybody, make sure you have your lesson 2 out. It will be on page 24 today. Yesterday we talked about terrestrial planets. Caroline, do you remember anything about terrestrial planets?
Isn't that like we're talking like that when we were talking about like Mars and Mercury and Pluto and stuff like that?
Mars, Earth, Mercury,
And Pluto.
very good. You only one point.
Venus.
Very good.
Because this time we're going to be starting on Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune.
Good. What was the distinguishing characteristic of terrestrial planets? And we defined the word terrestrial. Anybody remember what that was about?
Wasn't it like where like it talks about the planets and what planets had all of them?
What they're made of, right?
Yeah.
What are terrestrial planets made of?
Rock.
So that's what terrestrial meant. We said it was of rock. These are planets that are made of rock. Okay? Mars, Earth, Mercury, Pluto, Venus, 5 of them. And yes, today we're going to be looking at the other classification of planets in our solar system, which are the Jovian planets. Today we'll get into groups when we're working on the words. I'm going to have you guys work on those a little more independently today. And just to see what you remember, there's 4 steps that we've been practicing and utilizing when we have difficult words or, in our case,
I remember.
bold-faced words.
The first one was reread the sentence. I think the second one was read before and after the sentence. The second and then suffix and prefix, and then number 4 was break the word apart.
Excellent. So the first thing we do when we find these bold-faced words is look at the sentence, reread the sentence. I think something that would be useful to us would be whenever we have them to underline that sentence. That way we're looking carefully at it. If we can't find the clues in that sentence, then we'll look at the sentence before and after. If that doesn't help us, we'll look at prefixes and suffixes, see if there's any parts of those words that will help us to understand the word. And then, of course, we look at the word itself and can we break it down into smaller parts. And ultimately, if that doesn't help us, then we may have to look it up. But the idea here is that there are clues in the passage that should help us figure out the meanings of these words. And so we're going to try our hand at that again today. And we'll do this for a little bit more. We're almost halfway through this particular unit. Mrs. Ragman and I were talking about when we complete this unit, we'll probably do some exam review because exams are coming up. So in a little bit of more than a week. So next week will be a regular instructional week. And then after that, right before break, we'll start getting ready to take exams. Okay. Any questions about that? Everybody has new note cards today. I don't know how many of these we'll use, but we'll see. Bottom of page 24. Go ahead and pull out your packet, Daniel. And the bottom of page 24. We're going to be looking at the Jovian planets.
What are those? Like, isn't that like the planets that are on the out part of the thing?
With the exception of Pluto, right? Yeah, so they're a little bit further away from the sun than 4 of the 5 here. And they're made of something different. Do you remember we talked a little bit about it?
I remember it was made of like some kind of gas or something.
Jovian planets. The outer planets, except for Pluto, are known as Jovian planets. Jovian means that the planets are similar to Jupiter. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are much larger than the terrestrial planets. Each Jovian planet is thought to have a core of rock surrounded by a liquid layer. The outer layer is mainly hydrogen helium gas. All of the Jovian planets have ring systems made of tiny orbiting particles called rings. Saturn is the planet best known for its rings. Go ahead and underline the sentence that has the word Jovian in it. And we're going to talk about the rings, but we won't make that a vocabulary word. I think guys will probably do that pretty well. So underline the sentence that contains the word Jovian.
Can you write that down? Can you write that down?
Okay, we'll get to that. All right, turn to page 25 when you finish with that. Let's do 2 or 3 vocabulary first, and then we'll check out this question. One of the words will be Jovian. We want to make sure we're clear on the meaning of that.
I don't think I have those.
We also want to do the great red spot. Let's just do those 2 for right now. The Galilean news I don't think is as important of a concept, even though we've talked about it. So let's figure out the meanings of Jovian and the great red spot. And we're going to have Caroline you'll be our first good person. Actually, why don't you and David be your own rings? I'll leave these cards here if you need to refer to them, but you see
It only takes me like a few days to get them down.
So I want you to be the person to make sure that you're figuring these out and that you work together. Who's most comfortable with those? So if you need to refer to these, you know what to do. So you make sure that you get those 2 concepts defined. Daniel, I'm going to have you join David and Caroline from now. Just help them figure out these 2 words, and then I'll come back to that.
What are they?
Jovian planets and the great red spot. So if you're the person I put in charge, then your job is going to be basically to just talk to your group and say, okay, let's figure out what Jovian means. And then you would say our first clue is to look at the sentence. And then you just go through your clues as needed. If you can't figure it out, then let me know and I'll help. Is everybody finished? Finish the great red spot. What did you say it was?
The giant storm rose in the earth.
Be smart. The great red spot is a giant storm larger than the Earth.
I put a giant surface that has a giant storm larger than Earth.
Is what?
A giant surface that has giant
Giant.
Giant circle.
Surface.
Surface.
Where did you get that from? First one, it says old Jupiter's surface is a giant storm larger than Earth, called the Great Red Spot.
It's mixed up in the room. So a giant storm on Jupiter's surface.
Yeah.
other than Earth?
Yep.
Pretty well.
That part first week.
Jovian? What does Jovian mean?
Means that planets are small, similar to Jupiter.
Planets similar to Jupiter. Excellent. Okay, so they're not terrestrial. So if we looked at more details, we would see that they're made up primarily of gases. They're similar to Jupiter. They're the outer planets with the exception of Pluto. And they're huge too. And they have a lot of moons, it seems. So very interesting planets. Very different from ours. Good. As far as the clues, did you have to go too far into the clues, or were you able to just look at the sentence and find what you were looking for? Yeah, in both cases, yeah, I was kind of looking at the same thing. So that's fantastic. Good job. Now, let's go ahead and do that practice. 8 on page 27. You guys can work together in your groups and see what you come up with for practice 8, page 27. Okay, so they're so closely related to meteoroids, I think we can just discuss them. So let's define these 4 terms in the same way we did the others, working together. The point person in this case happens to be Danielle and Caroline. Your job, you guys need to talk out loud, make sure that everybody is on this, going through the process. Now remember, if you can't
Did we write these down on our card?
If you can't find these terms in the first step of the clue, then try the second step, and you'll have to work together on that.
I need that second. Orbital.
Orbital.
Is that the one?